that Splatoon 3 has been out for a while and the metagame has become more balanced, we have a better picture than ever of the spot every weapon is in. Today, I want to start a new series going over each weapon class, the spot the individual weapons are in, and tweak them to reach a more ideal state. This won't just be about competitive balance, but also ranked modes, game design, and including some unique rework ideas, new kits, or even new mechanics. Today, I want to start off this series with the class I know best, the Blasters. I'm going to go through all of them and give my ideas for what I would want to see for an ideal state of every blaster. Let me know what you guys want in the comments and subscribe to see more. As a whole, blasters are currently in an alright spot balance-wise, with most being usable at the highest level, and them being more than viable in most solo rank situations. However, they have a lot of problems. As a class, they have a lot of weaknesses, some less necessary than others. Going for directs while moving can be a bit too unreliable, and some of the blasters could be a bit more distinct. Finally, when looking at these buffs, we want to be careful to have them mostly impact higher levels of play, as some blasters are quite strong in lower ranks. Before we get to the individual blasters, we can have our first global change to the class, and this is something that Luna got recently, a change where its intensify action curve would be better, so you could stack less of it to get a stronger amount. This change will now be applied to blasters as a whole, making it much more reliable for them to stack small amounts of intensify and reducing the jump RNG problem on all of them. With that out of the way though, let's get started with the Clash Blaster. This weapon is in one of the worst spots in the entire game. It's currently seen as a bottom 10 weapon on both of its kits, even though they're pretty solid. At the same time though, it can be seen as quite annoying in lower ranks, where the kill time and painting weaknesses aren't exploited as hard, and it has the weakest directs by far, making them feel very underutilized, so let's change that. Something I noticed from playing S-Blast 92, which also has a similar slow kill time but large area of effect hitbox, is that it's much more threatening when it has a one-shot kill available. Just the threat of that happening gives a way around the low kill time if you're able to aim well, and while Clash can't one-shot, I personally think it would be fair to increase the damage so it can combo with a single indirect hit. This would be buffing the damage from 60 to 75. I don't think this change would impact lower ranks very much, since it centers a lot around directs and being able to hit people who are rushing you down to take advantage of the kill time. It rewards and incentivizes better and more healthy gameplay, and I think that change alone is a good start, but definitely not enough to make the weapon good. To make Clash more distinct, as it is one of the fastest firing blasters in the game, I also want to give it a much higher strafe speed, buffing it by about 20% to be significantly faster while moving than any other blaster in the game. I think this is really needed to help set apart its identity compared to other shorter range blasters, as well as make it more unique and better. However, of course, at lower ranks, this would be a bit much. So as a trade-off, we could reduce the area of effect radius from 40 to 38 units. This still keeps it as the second highest in the game, being more than Luna and slightly shorter than the close range area of effect hitbox on S-Blast, but it has the trade-off of higher fire rate, movement speed, and now having better direct damage. I think as a whole, this is a much more fun blaster with more tools at its disposal that's more unique to others without being as oppressive at lower ranks. But before we get to the next blaster, before I did content creation, I used to be super into coding and in particular really wanted to make platformers. If doing something like that sounds like something you're interested in, then let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Southern New Hampshire University, or SNHU. They have one of the largest accredited non-profit online degree offerings in the country. I want to tell you about their game development program. With this, you'll be able to learn how to create realistic, dynamic gameplay experiences with AI, game physics, 2D and 3D graphics, and interface design. You'll be able to learn 3D modeling and texturing with game art software and computer programming languages like C++, C#, and Java. Courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience, and you'll learn how to research, develop, and contribute to the advances and trends within the field of game programming. SNHU is radically affordable, and their online tuition rates are some of the lowest in the nation. Go to snhu.edu/ProChara, also linked in my description, to see what the current average annual salary for a programmer is and request free information about the program. When requesting information, you'll be able to talk with a real person to discuss how the program can benefit you personally. It only takes one click to find your calling. Thank you so much to SNHU for sponsoring this video, and let's get to the next blaster change. Up next is the Luna Blaster. This weapon sees pretty low competitive use, even with a solid kit or two and some decent buffs over the years, including a recent one. It just faces harsh competition, mainly from Tri-Slosher, though the recent addition of S-Blast also competes with it. Tri is the main one though, which has outclassed it for a while. The weapon is still satisfying and balanced okay, but it clearly needs a way to stand out with more than just the kits. Before my bigger idea, let's just do a small change of being one frame faster in terms of end lag before going into squid form. It's already solid, but a slight boost can be nice to help just a little bit extra and keep it closer to the regular blaster, which is currently about 4 frames faster. I debated a small radius size increase, but Clash and S-Blast already have that gimmick. So instead, my idea is to help its DPS. Luna's DPS isn't awful, it's actually pretty solid, but let's make it a real strength. Luna's direct damage will be buffed from 125 to 160, making it great versus objects like Crab or the Rainmaker Shield, as well as comboing with an indirect if it hits a squid roll. This can make it much more threatening against these options than most close range ones, since it can, for example, threaten to both break a Crab and shoot the Rider on top of it fairly quickly. It feels like a nice reward for a weapon that can get in close and something that'll help separate it from other weapons. Next up is the regular blaster. This one requires the least amount of changes, as it already has a reasonable radius size, is in an okay spot balance-wise, and the main weapon is pretty good with how fast it is. It only really has one odd trait. It has the worst jump spread out of all the blasters. Its major issue right now is that its kit is just kinda bad, so the changes for this one are rather simple. Its jump RNG will now match that of most of the other blasters. With the obvious part out of the way, there's a lot of different kits that could work well for a custom blaster, and I won't be making a perfect one by any means. More just a kit that could work well. I think Fizzy Bomb would be solid for mobility and poking that could especially help it paint for its special with how difficult normal blaster struggles to get one. And for its special, I think the recently buffed Super Chump could provide cover, paint, and a way for it to get in, especially with the recent buffs making it much easier for blasters to play around. After that is, of course, my most used weapon, the Range Blaster. This weapon got a lot of bad changes, going from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2. With Splatoon 3, it's been clear that this is a game where the weapon has some uses and could potentially work. It is still a bit bloated with weaknesses, especially when compared directly with S-Blast, which has many small things over it to be easily the more fun weapon, even if the long range mode is much better on Range Blaster with its AoE size. It also has the issue of, for being such a difficult weapon, its jump RNG is terrible, that especially before Tacticooler, it really hurt its skill expression. And finally, it has a kit that makes aggressive plays far less reliable. The jump RNG is actually mostly covered by the global Intensify curve we did earlier, making it much easier to run a few small amounts of Intensify to help mitigate that effect. However, one smaller change to help make going for those directs a bit more reliable would be to give it the faster shot velocity of the S-Blaster. This would not only help directs, but also make swapping between it and S-Blaster easier, since they share the same fire rate and end lag and startup stats. Finally, we can give the weapon back its iconic Splatoon 1 CRB kit of Splat Bomb and Kraken. With its nerfed ink efficiency from Splatoon 1 and rework Kraken, it would be more than fair in this game and give it a more aggressive option, while keeping the first kit better at mixing in some more team support. As a side note, this kit and the original kit should both be 190p with its poor special output for a little bit of an extra buff. Up next are the Rapids. I'm gonna put both Rapid and Rapid Pro in this section. I do want to do a change to each one to make them a bit more distinct, but there's really not much else here that needs much changing balance-wise. The only real oddity is a bit high points for special on the vanilla Rapid and Rapid Deco. So those two can both be 10 cheaper points for special, but let's get to the more interesting stuff, distinguishing the two different Rapids a little bit more. For the normal Rapids, I think they could be lightweight, making them slightly faster would be a small but nice buff to help with their follow-ups. The Rapid Pro, on the other hand, since it's a bit slower, could do a bit more damage on direct hit, so we can buff that from 85 to 90. Again, these are tiny changes. Rapids are in pretty good spots right now with solid kits, but it's a tiny little boost that's fine for them and also distinguishes them a little bit more. Finally is the brand new S-Blaster. While this has a lot of potential, it's been rather unpopular at higher levels of play. The short range mode has proven to be solid with its large size, mostly making up for its kill time. However, the long range mode has been quite situational with its tiny blast radius size. That also makes it a bit unrewarding if you're not hitting directs with it. However, of course, the main issue of this weapon is a weak kit that gives it very little flexibility and room for error. To start with the long range area of effect, I want to make this a little bit more distinct since its faster shot speed was given to Range Blaster earlier in the video. We can make the size a small bit larger to be exactly half of what the short range area of effect is to be more reliable, an increase of about 2 units. However, that wouldn't change too much. The main thing I want to do is buff the curve from 50 to 70 damage to 60 to 80. This gives it a bit more combo potential, especially since it's much more likely to do over 70 damage, meaning it'll work better together with a lot of weapons and bombs for a bit of an extra reward. Outside of that though, the main change would be a new kit. Without much to base this off of, I decided to go with Torpedo for its flexibility and giving you a way to still paint your feet quickly for movement, and with the increased long range area of effect damage, you could go for Torpedo combos with it. And since it's never been on a blaster, let's go with Crab Tank since it matches the theme of the weapon with having some flexibility between its two firing modes. It can be 190p. Well, that's all my ideas for the blasters. I plan to cover one of the most extreme classes in the game, including a rework up next, Chargers. Let me know what you want to see there, and I'll see you guys next time.